Johnson himself tweeted last night, quote, "I'd rather be talking about these great NBA playoffs than Donald Sterling's interview." Well, actually, you can hear Magic Johnson tonight in a CNN exclusive. Anderson Cooper will interview Johnson tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. Oh, but we have to talk more about Sterling's interview, don't we? Joining me now, CNN's Stephanie Elam, criminal defense attorney and Clippers season ticket holder Brian Claypool, and CNN commentator and legal analyst Mel Robbins. Mel, why does he keep talking?
You know, this goes to show you that money can't buy you class, common sense, or happiness, for crying out loud. It is kind of stunning that you would respond, Carol, to allegations about racism with more racism, with race baiting. And as I watched this, I couldn't help but think, holy cow, how does a guy with this much money, these many lawyers, who's so aggressive about protecting everything that he owns, go on television and basically meander on and on and on and dig himself such a huge hole? How do the people around him let him get away with this? I guess the million-dollar question is, they've been doing it for years, all because of money.
Okay, so Brian, I've been trying to figure out what big beef that Sterling has with Magic Johnson. And number one, I think he's jealous of Magic Johnson. And number two, he made it clear that he thinks that Magic Johnson is trying to buy the Clippers. But
right.
I'm just stymied by it, really.
Hey, Carol, before I answer that question, if there had been a lie detector machine in that room where he did the interview with Anderson Cooper, it would have blown up the room. I mean, this guy is a pathological liar. And he has had an issue with Magic Johnson dating back to when Magic was the head of Showtime. Remember that with the Lakers? And at that time, Carol, the Clippers were the doormat of the town. You couldn't sell 5,000 seats to go see a Clipper game. And then Magic Johnson became part owner of the Lakers. And again, the Clippers were the stepchild in LA to the Lakers. And then Magic Johnson gets into the real estate business, competing with Donald Sterling in the real estate business. So they've had this ongoing competition for probably 20 or 30 years in Los Angeles. But I will tell you firsthand that I met Magic Johnson about a decade ago, before I became a criminal defense lawyer, before I became a civil rights lawyer, at Starbucks in Seattle. He was at the corporate office there because he's the only person that can franchise Starbucks. And he gave a speech to all those employees in that building and inspired everybody. He's an exceptional man.
He is an exceptional man, Stephanie. What are the people of Los Angeles? What do they think about this interview?
People are befuddled by it. They're befuddled that Magic Johnson continues to be a target for Donald Sterling. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Magic is loved in this town. And while he's poking holes at what he's done, Magic has actually done a lot. I mean, I used to live in New York and I live here. Both cities, Magic had started enterprises in places where people were afraid to start businesses and show that this is where money can be made. He had Starbucks that were in South LA. He had them in Harlem. Same thing with these movie theaters. So it is bizarre. And there are a lot of people who love Magic. Magic was at the last game here at Staples Center. People were cheering him on. He was sitting there having a conversation with Commissioner Silver. People love Magic. And I even saw people when we were in the Golden State series up in Oakland, people had signs that said, "Magic, please buy the Clippers."
And I want to talk about that.
So,
I want to talk about that right now. So Mel, I'll start with you. So Magic Johnson says he'll never attend a Clippers game unless Donald Sterling is no longer the owner, but like he did. He kind of like gave a charming little giggle when asked if he wanted to buy the Clippers, and he's going to sit down with Anderson Cooper tonight. So I'm thinking he probably does want to buy the Clippers.
Well, there's no doubt that I'm sure he and his partners, the Guggenheim Group, are going to take a look at it and perhaps do a bid, but I think it's too soon to tell. And Magic's a smart guy, unlike Donald Sterling, and you're not going to see him say anything about it. But, you know, if you really look at what Donald Sterling's saying, what happened in that interview is he was saying that he spoke to Magic Johnson and that he's claiming Magic told him that he would help him through this controversy. And what you saw happen is just Sterling unraveled as he was kind of pontificating and going off on a tangent like, why do people love Magic? Why don't they love me? It's almost as if he doesn't have a clue what's going on outside of the house that he lives in. He doesn't have a clue what's going on in the world.
He looked so annoyed when he saw, when Anderson told him that Magic was at the game, the look on his face was he looked so annoyed that he was there. He seemed to have a very serious issue with Magic being anywhere near the Clippers or being that larger-than-life personality.
It's just so strange. So, Brian, I'll pose the last question of this segment to you. So, if any of the NBA owners were watching the interview, with Sterling on Anderson Cooper last night, what do you think was going through their minds?
Well, I think what was going through their minds was, thank goodness for Anderson Cooper doing such a great interview. Thank goodness that Donald Sterling just handed the Clippers to the Board of Governors on a silver platter, and I'll tell you why. He said one thing that sealed his fate. He said, quote, "I humiliated and embarrassed the league." If I'm the Board of Governors, I'm taking that statement that he made last night and using that as an admission that he has tarnished the league and violated this morality clause, and he has just written his own fate. Thank you. Thank you, Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Sterling.
Stephanie Elam, Brian Claypool, Mel Robbins, stay with me because we have much more to discuss throughout the hour, including this.
I contend that they love me.
You think they still love you?
I do. I do.
You believe the players of the Los Angeles Clippers love you?
Absolutely. They know I'm not a racist.
Donald Sterling seems to think he's got plenty of supporters who haven't just come out and said so publicly yet. More of his exclusive interview with CNN.
We don't love. I contend that they love me.
You think they still love you?
I do. I do.
You believe the players of the Los Angeles Clippers love you?
Absolutely. They know I'm not a racist, and I'm not a racist.
Why haven't they come forward and said that?
Well, you see, people are intimidated by even the thought of racism. And around the world, and this, they call me from Australia, from London, and they ask me, different media, are you a racist? I'm not a racist.
Let's talk more about this. With me now, CNN Stephanie Elam, Brian Claypool, an attorney and Clippers season ticket holder, and Mel Robbins, a CNN commentator and legal analyst. Stephanie Elam, you want to go first? Donald Sterling says he's not a racist. Do you think he understands what a racist is?
I think he may be confused a bit about what that means. There's a couple of things here. A, he seemed to open up the door that maybe he's not willing to put in the fight here. Maybe he's willing to just sell and walk away. That's one first thing that he didn't totally say it, but he opened the door to it. The other issue here is he talks about the players and how they still love him, and that if one does it, the rest of them follow him because, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Darren Collison, they're all just jellyfish. And what one does, the other one does. It wasn't a decision made by the team. But Doc Rivers said that it was to reverse those jerseys and have those labels, the logo not showing. So even in his way of saying that they love him, he still sort of offended them, which is also a very odd way to go.
It is. And Brian, he said, do you think they'll just walk off the team? They have to work. But they actually will just walk off the team if he remains the owner. But he doesn't seem to realize that.
Well, Carol, you're trying to talk rational with an irrational person. And by the way, when he woke up this morning and looked in the mirror, his nose must have grown about a foot. Because again, he's lying through his teeth. The Clipper players don't love him. And and I thought he was going to make a Freudian slip last night. I thought he was going to say, my animals love me instead of my players love me. Because he treats Clipper players like a zookeeper. Donald Sterling's barometer for being racially tolerant is that he provides food and clothes and a paycheck to black players. That's not the same as what most people in this country believe as being racially tolerant. He treats the Clipper players like they are animals in a zoo, and he's feeding them and providing them with a paycheck. And I find it offensive, and I'm privileged to sit in the same row as Chris Paul's family, most lovely family you'll ever come to meet. And I will tell you, the sentiment with the players is that we need new ownership immediately. And by the way, Mr. Sterling, you don't own the Clippers. The fans of this city and the people across this country own the Clippers. They are ours, not yours.
Well, Mel, it was interesting. Anderson Cooper kept pressing him. Will you, if NBA owners vote to, oust you and deny you ownership to the team, will you fight legally? And he kept evading the question. But it's pretty clear to me that he's not going to go down without a fight.
Yeah, you know, Carol, you're right, and Brian's right too. You can't have a rational conversation or a rational analysis with a guy who's completely off his rocker. And the only thing that I disagree with, you know, in Brian's comments is I actually don't think he's lying. I think in his heart of hearts, he doesn't believe that he's a racist, that he comes from such an old school that just providing paychecks and a job means that you're basically a saint. And so I don't think that he was lying. I think he's so delusional, and he's a guy, by the way, has been able to buy his way to control everything. When the Justice Department comes after him, he settles for less than $3 million. When he wants to move the team from San Diego to Los Angeles in violation of the NBA Constitution, he just countersues the NBA. This is probably the first time that Donald Sterling has lost control of what he wants. And I think he's spinning because he actually doesn't understand why. His entire life he's been surrounded by people, and I also sit here and say, why, dear Lord, do people like this get to make this much money? Why does a scumbag that treats people like this have so much cash? Maybe it's so that the rest of us see what racism truly looks like and so that we have a national conversation. But I don't think he's lying. I think he has had a lifetime of controlling every single situation by bullying people with money, and finally it's come back and bitten him in the ass, and he just is spinning because he doesn't know what happened.
Whew.
Hey,
Hey,
Carol,
whoa, yeah.
Hey, Carol, real quick. The thing he is lying about, Mel, you make a good point, but he is lying about whether he wants to fight with the NBA. He says, oh, well, you know, we don't want to go down that path. I have reliable information out here that he has spent the last 2 weeks meeting with no less than 8 law firms throughout Los Angeles and San Francisco to try to sue the NBA. And none of these law firms will take him on as a client because of potential collateral damage. So that's where he's lying.
Stephanie Elam, Brian Claypool, Mel Robbins, thanks so much. And by